Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim Martino with Pavement Group. We'd like to welcome you to another video, and today we're here on site in Austin, Texas, commissioning our new Olympus Pugmill. Hey guys, welcome. Tim Martino here. I'm going to explain some of the features of our Pugmill. This particular unit has its own power supply. This is a genset. It's got a 4.5 liter turbo diesel motor inside. It powers the whole machine. It's 480 volts. Very easily accessible with the door here. You just open this up and everything you need to give power to the machine is right inside here. We've got a couple of latches on the other door so that we have access to the inside of the engine bay. Routine maintenance, of course, we'll check the oil before we start it up and the coolant level, which we've done ahead of time here. There's a main supply shut off here for the battery. So now that we've had that engaged, we can turn our key on. And this features a deep sea electronics controller on it with many options. You can see the engine hours meter on it. It gives you the RPMs. Everything you want to know about how this generator is running, the voltage it's putting out, is all right here on this panel. That's very easy to see. So all we have to do is turn the key on. We've got power coming from the battery, and we just hit the button and start it up. Okay, so we've checked the oil and we've checked the coolant. Both are at the appropriate level that they need to be. We turn the main supply on for the battery, and we'll come over to our deep sea electronics controller here and turn the key on, and that'll give you a display on the screen up here, and it'll tell you that the generator's at rest. And all we have to do now is press the finger button, and that puts it into manual mode so that we can start the generator up. It features many other modes because the generator's got many applications. So we're just using it for the Pugmill machine here. We don't need to worry about auto controls or backfeed or anything because it's only going to our supply box to give power to all our conveyor belts and our controls back there. So we're in manual mode. We press the green button to fire the engine, and it fires it right up. After a minute, it'll warm up and it'll tell you that the generator is available. And what you'll do from up here to get the power from the generator to go back to our control panel is just flip this switch. You have to wait for the generator available light to come on, which it is now. Now we've got power going back to our main panel. And you just come around this side of the machine, and our main panel box is right back here. And we keep this closed. We've got our danger indicators here. All it is the flip of a switch. Now all the power coming from our generator into this panel is being distributed out throughout the machine. We've got a control box on the other side. We've got all the controls for the conveyor belts, the Pugmill, the water pump, and the asphalt pump are all over on the other side of the machine. You'll see that everything is nicely labeled. All the wiring is very nice and clean. There's an e-stop located on the outside of the panel. This will stop all of our Pugmill systems, so the conveyor belts will stop, all the motors, all the moving parts will stop when any one of these is pressed alongside of the Pugmill. And they are 3 of them on each side here. You got one down at the front of the machine, one here, and one at the rear of the machine in case anybody needs to hit that emergency stop button at any time. Now the genset has its own emergency stop on the front of that generator pack that'll shut the generator down if needed. Okay, so we've got our main disconnect on our control box here. This should only be opened up by a qualified electrician. You should never have to go inside of here. There's a very high risk of electric shock, especially if you don't know what you're doing. It's 3-phase power coming from the generator, leg 1, leg 2, and leg 3, and your common ground. So with these quick disconnects to our power control box, they're set in here with a set screw so they can't easily just be taken out. Now if you wanted to use the Pugmill off of shore power, for example, you could have all the power off and you can disconnect these quick disconnects and bring your shore power in, plug in your 3 legs and your ground, and still have power to the control box and all your electrical components to the Pugmill off of shore power. So on the Pugmill itself, we've got 6 emergency shutoff switches, 3 on each side, 1 in the front of the machine here. We've got 1 on the power box located up on the pug mill, and these 3 switches on this side and the other 3 on the other side will shut down all the conveyor belts, the pug mill, and all the electrical motors that are on the pug mill. Now the generator set has its own kill switch on the front of the panel. Upon arrival of your machine, you'll want to set this up on as level of a surface as possible. And we do have 6 jack legs on the machine to help you do that. And they just pop up here. They're at a 10-to-1 ratio, so every time you crank this 10 times, you're moving up 1 scale on the jack. And you just level the machine out with these feet to the best of your ability. And you're going to want to put it in an area with a base that can support the weight of this machine along with the material that you're loading into it. And there's 6 of these that you just raise up and down to level it out as much as possible. You can put a level indicator on here to make sure you're nice and flat. Okay, so now we'll show you some of the movable parts on this, starting with the discharge conveyor that's operated with the hydraulic system, the control panels on the other side. Now I would recommend that normally you do this with 2 people to help pull the pins and make sure that everything's sliding back up the way it should. I will do it myself because I feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. So we'll just walk around on the other side to the control panel. And those are right over here. We'll turn power on to the control panel box, and that'll give us power to our hydraulics. So we're going to turn the main power on. That's going to allow all of our voltage to come over to this panel. We can turn our display on here. These are all the controls for our discharge conveyor, our collecting conveyor, our pug mill, loading bin 2 and loading bin 1, which are all set up to where everyone has to be satisfied for the other one to work. So you'll have to start at the end with the discharge conveyor. That has to be running before the pug mill can run. And then the pug mill has to be running before the collecting conveyor can run, and the same for bin 2 and bin 1. Everything has to be satisfied in order so that you can't overload the material. Now that our main power supply is on, we'll go back to the hydraulic motor in the back for the discharge conveyor. And here's our power for our hydraulic motor back here. And we've transferred the power to here now. We've got 2 valves that we open and close to move the conveyor. And there's a couple of pins in here that I'll pull out. We've got 1 here for the top half of the conveyor. We'll need these out in order to fold this up. And there's 2 more on the lower part of it. And that'll allow the bottom section to fold up. Okay, now our safety pins are out, and we can start folding our conveyor up. So we've labeled these A and B, and they match the rams that are on the conveyor. So conveyor, this arm is for ram A, and this lever is for ram B up on the top. And we've also labeled the extend and retract. So right now we want to retract. We're going to fold this one up. So let's curl that up a little bit. Yep, keep going up, up, up. Up, up, up. Okay, now stop. Put these pins in while it's down low. We go up a little bit. Hold on, hold on. Hold on. Now this, climb up there and put these pins in. All right, now see up there, there's more pins up on top. We're gonna fold this one all the way up first. Leave that halfway curled like that. Bring this one up. There's no more pins, so this one.
And there are no pins there?
Yes, these pins. Yes. Good. Good. This is the reason they call it the Scorpion Conveyor, because it's going to fold up over the top of the pug mill. So I'll go up halfway with this, and then I'll start to extend the lower one. And then there's pins located in the top. You line the holes up and you pin them right up into the top. We've folded up our conveyor, and this is the part really where two people can come in handy, because you're going to want to line the holes up on the conveyor to be able to put your pins in. So I'll just give my operator some hand signals so that I can line these holes up nice. And that's it. Perfect. That one went right in. I'll pin it in the back side. Okay, so we're pinned up top. We're going to go down and around, and we'll pin the other side. I'll have my operator finagle this a little bit so that my holes are lined up. Come on down. Good. Nice and easy. Okay, we're pinned in. Now we can shut off our hydraulic motor, as our operator has done, and we're safely able to go down the road. Now our conveyor is ready for transport. So now our conveyor is folded all the way up, and our highest point is the bin number 2. We're at 13 feet 5 inches, so we're completely road legal. Okay, so we've got Vice President Ned Reeves up top here, and he's just going to show you there's a vent valve up top. After you curl the conveyor belt up, we're going to want to close that valve so that our hydraulic fluid doesn't drip while it's sitting in that position. And of course, we'll open that valve when we unfold the conveyor. Unfold and fold. The vent is on the gearbox to accommodate expansion when the gear oil heats up. That's why that valve needs to be open when the conveyor belt is in the offload position. So that gearbox will vent out. When it folds down, that valve will be facing upward, so you don't have to worry about anything dripping. And it has to be closed while it's folded down so that the fluid doesn't drip down onto the deck. So when your Olympus Pugmill shows up to the job site for the first time, you'll see that we've got these stiffening arms attached to the machine. You'll unbolt these and you bring them back to the discharge conveyor, and they'll give you added support. Once you're fully extended out You put the positioning arms into the proper locations where the holes are provided, and you can adjust the tension of these with these threaded bolts here. Your pug mill will come with 2 ladders that are zip tied to the side of the railing up top, and you'll cut the zip ties in the plastic wrap, bring your ladder up, and we'll show you how it sets up right here. There's 2 holes here for the top of the ladder to guide into. And we'll just bring it down, and our guy will put them right into the holes there, and now we have access to the top. We have 3 sets of landing legs on each side. This is used for balancing, leveling out your machine. We've got one here in the rear on this side, as well as one on the other side, directly across from each other. Then we've got a set here in the middle. These are independent, so when you jack one up, it only raises this leg. Same on the other side. And then the legs up here on the front are connected with a common bar across, but these legs raise up at the same time. When you get it to the height that you want it at, we have one more set of main support legs that go right into these slots. And if you can't get it high enough off the ground to get them up and under, you take these 6 bolts off, put the leg in, pin it in, and then put your cover back on and set it to where you want it. And that's for additional support on the front of the machine, just underneath the gen set. So you'll notice on your Olympus Pugmill, there are several labels for greasing points. These are mainly going to cover all the roller bearings. You'll have them on the jacks, and they are very appropriately labeled everywhere that you need to put grease. We recommend doing this on a daily basis to make sure that your parts don't wear prematurely. So on the outside here for this roller bearing, we very conveniently put a grease fitting on the outside of the cage, so you don't have to worry about sticking your hands in there or any kind of pinch points, which we also have very conveniently labeled to keep your hands clear of these rollers. So you'll grease it here, and that'll grease that roller. We have another grease point back here on the jack stands. There's one on the bottom, one on the top, also conveniently labeled, and those 2 fittings will be on each of the jacks. Grease points up top for the roller bearings. You can see the labels there. Also pinch points, very nicely labeled. And as you move down the machine, you'll find more labels for the grease points. We'll work our way down. On the inside of this jack leg, we've got another label for our grease point. And as we see any kind of rollers or bearings, there's a grease point there for the outside bearing, a grease point for the jack on the top. These are all very nicely labeled, so you can't get confused about it. Another greasing point here with the grease fitting on the outside of the cage, so you don't have to worry about the pinch point. Another one down here on this bearing, and another one up on the jack. We've got another one down low, right for here for this bearing, easy to reach inside. On the inside of this jack leg, another grease point here, very nicely labeled. We've got these tools here that are bolted down. Those are for adjusting the belt tension on those tensioner bolts. Another grease point here. Okay, so we've got 2 800-pound Vibeco vibrators on the bottom sides of the bins, mounted here with 4 bolts, and they also have safety chains on them in case they were to vibrate loose. Now that we've got power coming from our generator to our main control panel, the power is going to come to our instrument panel here, and as you can see, the red light is lit, so everything is off. No power coming to the panel right now. We got to turn the main power supply on. We got to turn our display from off to on. And now we have power to our vibrators. These are set on a 10-second on and 1 minute off override. So we can push this once, and our vibrator comes on for 10 seconds. Once that 10 seconds is counted, the vibrators automatically shut off and they cool down for 1 minute, where you'll have to depress the button again to turn them back on. You don't need these to be constantly running. It's just to help the material fall down onto the collecting belt. So on this particular Olympus Pugmill model, it has a watering system, which we have a water pump here and a flow meter that calculates the volume of water that's going through this system. This is the Isomag made in Italy, and it basically monitors all of the water coming through this machine from this pump. We also have limit switches on the pug mill door itself, and this will prevent the pug mill from spinning when you have the doors open. We recommend, of course, you follow up with your company's safety advisor onto lockout and tag out procedures. The pug mill is very dangerous, so if those doors are opened, it won't spin. If there's ever any problem, we need to do the proper lockout and tag out procedures. On the top of your Olympus pug mill, you'll see an easily accessible access port, and you can remove this lid and easily pump in via screw from a silo, either cement treated base or lime or other dry materials that you can easily pump into your pug mill. So on this particular Olympus pug mill, our customer has gone for the option of having the asphalt pump and water pump built into the system. And inside, just on top of the pug mill chamber, there's a bar with 14 tips for water spraying and for another bar for spraying asphalt directly into your pug mill chamber for sufficient mixing and even coating. So you'll find in your Olympus pug mill chamber that we have twin shafts, and those are driven by a variable frequency drive electric motor. And you'll find that the paddles inside of the pug mill are dual-sided. There's a nut and a bolt locking them in. So once they wear on one side, you can easily take the nut and the bolt off, flip the paddles around, and then use the other side to extend the life of your pug mill paddles. And as you look further into your pug mill chamber, you'll see the liner. We have a wear item that is made out of Hardox, and this is an abrasive resistant material that really extends the life of the pug mill liner. On each end of the conveyor, there is a heavy-duty rubber scraper to help ensure keeping the conveyor belts clean. These are adjustable as well as a wear item that are replaceable, and they come preset from the factory with the proper tension on them to keep the belts clean. And you'll see another one on the collecting conveyor before it goes into the pug mill. Preset from the factory, ready to go to work. And as we indicated, these are a wear item that are replaceable. So we'll start here with our variable drive frequency electric motor. That's going to be at the bottom base there, and that is connected with a belt to our drive shaft that drives the conveyor belt. And there is a tensioner on there to adjust the belt tension as needed to accommodate for any belt stretch. And all you have to do is turn these threads and you can tension your belt. From the drive motor to the gearbox. And the same on this motor over here. We've got the electric motor going to the gearbox and a belt tensioner on there as well. You'll find that on all of your electric motors to your gearboxes, there will be a dual belt system, easily accessible outside of that cage. You've got about we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts. Take the face off of that cage, release the tension via the tensioner, and replace your drive belts as needed. So on the face of each of your feed bins, you'll see that there's a jack to control the door opening, and there's also an indicator to tell you how many inches your door is open. And that's easily moved up and down with the jack handle. Just in front of the pug mill entrance, we have a deflector plate bolted on. Just in case any of the material doesn't make it right into the pug mill, this plate will guide that leftover material down and onto the ground so that the walkway doesn't get covered in material and your electric motor underneath the conveyor belt doesn't get covered with material. It's a nice access spot for it to just drop right down onto the ground. Is that perfect? Pretty good. Pretty good. So yeah, we'll just put these in there once we fold that first section up. You can do it right down from the ground. Yep. Okay, so on the rear of the machine, you'll find the control panel. This has all the buttons and switches to control your conveyor belts on, off, the direction that they're going, the speed that they're going. There's a Danfoss controller here. And then when this is on, it'll show you the RPMs of how fast all these electric motors are spinning, and that'll give you an idea of your belt speed. So you've got your discharge conveyor just on the end here, and all of these have to be satisfied in a row. So when we flip our discharge conveyor up, that'll be the first thing to start running, and then we go down and work our way down the machine. So we'll go to the pug mill. That will have to be on next in order to satisfy the switch for the collecting conveyor. Once the collector conveyor is on, we can turn on the switch for bin 2 and then the switch for bin 1. If at any time one of these gets shut off and interrupts the system, all of the belts will stop. So when you're done discharging for the day, we'll shut them down in reverse order. Bin 1 will stop discharging from the bin 1 and 2. Now our collecting conveyor will let that empty off into the pug mill that's still turning. Turn off the collecting conveyor once all the material's off of it. Then we'll go to our pug mill and we'll make sure that that's emptied out. Turn the pug mill off, and everything's discharged off the end of the machine with the discharge conveyor, and we can shut that off. Now these are the adjustment knobs for controlling the RPM of the motors that drive the belts. So you can turn these up and down to get the rate that you want. You got a switch for your water pump and for your asphalt pump as well, and those are, you can control the RPMs on those as well, because these are all variable speed frequency electric motors. The vibrators, as we said before, momentary switch. You push the button, it vibrates for 10 seconds, and then it goes on a cool down cycle for 60 seconds, and you have to press it again to get it to vibrate again. So now that we're here at the control panel, we can see that our Danfoss controller now has power. Gives you a great introduction to the name of the machine, the date, the time. You press OK. It'll give you 4 options. It gives you the material bin 1 and 2. And that's to set the feed settings from those bins, the weight of the material in yards, cubic yards. You'll back out of that setting. And you'll have another setting for the productivity. So the production setting is number 2. We'll go in there. That'll give us all of our readouts. So if bin 1 has a 4-inch opening, depending on the material that we're in there, it's estimating 49 tons per hour. Rotate that speed. And that'll give us our RPM readout on bin 1. Now we're going up. We turn it back down. There's all our volumetric readouts here. What the pug mill is turning at for RPMs, the discharge conveyor. If we're using water or asphalt, the gallons per minute that's being pumped into the system. And we have a weight scale. Obviously there's nothing on there now, so our weight is 0. We back out of that. And now we can go into our calibration mode. And this is what we're going to go into when we first set the machine up. And that's going to give us our percentages on our belt scale, our asphalt pump, and our water pump. We back out one more time and we can go into number 4, which is our memories. And that'll tell us what we've done in production on the past times that we've used the machine. You can see the aggregate in tons, the asphalt in gallons, the water in gallons, the total tons that have been run through it, the total water that's been run through it. And these are resettable. This is where you're going to be looking to go for setting up your machine and getting the production that you want. On the side of the control box, we've added a 110 volt outlet. You can hook up a number of things. You can charge your cell phone on it. You can run some floodlights. You can put a battery charger on there. Anything you need for 110 volts.
Are you on?
Yes. You ready? Okay, so when servicing your pug mill, we're going to follow all the safety procedures. We're going to lock out and tag out the machine. Make sure we have the keys, which I have the keys to the generator. I have the keys to the control box. Nobody can turn this machine on. Generator cabinet's locked. So we're safe to go in here now. There's 4 bolts that we undid. We can fold this door open and we'll get access to our pug mill. We got twin shafts inside of here, and we've got our replaceable paddles. So these paddles are good for two uses. So when it wears down on one side, we can flip this thing around, and then we can use the other side of it to mix until that one wears down. Now this liner is not only a steel liner, but it's got this Hardox liner in here as well, and it's very resistant to the abrasive materials, and this is a wear item as well. So this Hardox material that's you see bolted in, that's replaceable as well. It's a pretty simple setup. You can order parts from us anytime. We can get you new Hardox liners, new paddles, new hardware if necessary. If you keep up on the maintenance, oil, grease the shafts and the bearings, it'll last for years to come. Obviously, we have access to our spray bar and our tips here. We can change these tips out if necessary for the water bar and the asphalt pump. And it's pretty,